Welcome home to the native, landing on a podcast space destined for greatness. 60 minutes or so hit, not too long for the grave ship. High level combo, politics in a way that you can taste it, then digest it. Politics touches you even if you don't touch it, so get invested. Cross the T's and dot the I's, Gillum back to get 'em, stand on business with Rye. You could have been anywhere, but you chose us. Native Land Podcast, the brand that you can trust. Yes.
Welcome home, y'all. Welcome to episode 48 of Native Land Pod. It's so good to be home. We're coming to you live from the ATL Shorty. We are live in Atlanta for Spell House Homecoming. Right. Well, that's part of the celebration. We got another celebration I'll tell y'all about later. But it's so good to be here, Atlanta, and we have a live audience here. So we're going to kick off the show right away and bring in my co-host. I'm Tiffany Cross, here with Andrew Gillum and the fabulous Angela Rye. What's up, Angela?
I'm not fabulous. So cute.
You're fabulous too, but
okay.
Andrew's in a mood today, y'all. So we came in here, and Andrew is
I'm in a spirit of unity for all HBCU.
I don't know. Just so we're really clear, Andrew came in here representing his set. It's gang all day. He said, "To hell with Spellhouse Homecoming."
I thought when you go to other people's homecomings and you're from an HBCU, you rep your HBCU, not the other HBCU.
I just am saying
she didn't attend an HBCU, but she is family.
Honorary. I am
She
honorary.
is family to those of us who.
Are you revoking my HBCU
card? No, you're honorary.
My birthday weekend?
I'm an honorary.
Angela's an honorary Rattler.
Yeah, I'm an honorary.
And shout out to all the HBCUs, but we do want to honor Spelman and Morehouse. How many people went to Spelman and Morehouse in the audience?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay. A few of y'all. Well, because they all on the yard right now, but we got a few folks in here. So thank y'all for being here.
Yes. Well, we have such a great show today. The one thing that I want to just highlight in this moment is the election. We did a professional development program call with the group of young people that we train. And shout out to the professional development program students who are here, Janae and Kirsten, and then Lolo, who is a graduate of that program. Who is our booking producer, research producer, utility player, MVP. And I want to just acknowledge, we did this call where we talked about how we were feeling about the election. What are the vibes? There were tears shed. There was a conversation had about what folks were really feeling, the angst. We have a student who talked about being in an area where they are actively recruiting for the KKK. In North Carolina. Yeah. And it's fascinating to see the dichotomy of existence right now. Like,
can we poll the room?
There couldn't be a starker contrast. You think there might be some active KKK members in here?
No. I want to know how the room is feeling.
Poll the room? Oh, poll the room.
I want to know how the room is feeling about the upcoming election.
Andrew's like, who in here is a member of the KKK? Raise your hand. Like,
one.
You know how it's about to go down? Why are you pointing at me?
Oh, I haven't saying anything. I think I would love to know of the group that is assembled here, how many of you all are feeling confident right now by showing hands? Pretty confident about the outcome that you desire. Okay?
That's
and
about
those of us
of
that are at the opposite end of that, which is not very confident about the election. And then who is feeling sort of in the middle, like I'm nervous.
I'm nervous.
I believe, God, you're going to come through.
So for the audience listening and not watching,
okay,
about a third of the room said they feel confident. About, what do y'all think? About 60% of the room said they're not confident, and the remainder said they.
You know, my math don't
matter. The majority was
I don't know if that added up, but y'all get the idea.
About 37.5 said. That's great, Tiff. That is
adds
great.
Up to 150, but I think about a third is split across the spectrum.
I feel confident, y'all. I'm gonna just tell y'all, I feel confident. I feel like the sheer will of Black women are going to carry her across the line. I believe and trust in our counterparts, our brothers. I know y'all going to be right there with us to carry her across the line. Mm-hmm. I think it's just time. It's time. And I'm not consuming polls that come out every 5 minutes and one say this and one say that every day. I'm not consuming this media narrative that's been trying to divide our community. Because none of that matters. If we just focus on what we have to do and we get out the vote and we cast our ballots and we make sure Big Mama and Auntie and cousin and little JJ and everybody else cast their ballots, I just feel like we're gonna win. I really do.
I think when we start looking at polls and reading everybody else's opinion about what's gonna happen in the election, we should turn on a new default, which is when you have that instinct to do it, text a relative who you're relatively unclear about whether or not they're gonna vote. Pick up the phone call. I know it's very strange when your phone rings. I feel strange. I'm like, who is calling? Yeah. Because there are other ways to communicate. But
He don't
pick up the
communicate
phone and
those ways
call.
neither. He don't communicate those ways either.
Pick up the phone and call somebody, but because it doesn't really help us. It doesn't ease our nerves to read these polls. It doesn't frankly further inform us when reading everybody's opinion, because it's just that, an opinion. And if we're that concerned and we think that democracy is that much at stake, let's text somebody and make sure they get out to vote on election day, instead of getting in that spiral, because it can take you down reading some of the stuff.
But Georgia, I think Georgia, I'm so proud of Georgia because Georgia is officially a purple state. And I get tired of people saying, well, the South is red and the South is Republican. And I always say it only is till it ain't. And I think the people in Georgia have shown this new coalition of voters that, what I love about this area is black folks ain't the niche vote. Black folks are the base vote. So you need to pass through black folks to advance in a lot of elections. And I hope that this casts a wide shadow of influence over the rest of the country, as by 2020 or 2044, there will be no racial majority. So I think this is a good habit for us to get into owning our own political power and flexing the muscle this time around.
So normally at the top of every show, you all know we say, welcome home, y'all. And we are in a city that, well, Tiff can claim it. You can kind of claim it, but you threw the people off today wearing your, I know you're a rattler. But there's somebody who's here who can absolutely not only claim it, but also welcome us home. That is none other than the 59th mayor of Atlanta, Kasim Reed, who has joined us. So we're going to welcome Mayor Reed.
What up, Mayor?
Former mayor, some of y'all's forever mayor. We want to welcome him home so he can welcome us home right back. And also, can we give a shout out to Ryan at the Gathering Spot? Ryan Wilson, we love you. Thank you for welcoming us home. Thank you for everything you're doing in this election. Ryan is going to come up too. Ryan, come up. Why don't you go ahead and come up now? Make
Ryan
your way
welcomes
to the front
me
of the
home every week
congregation.
because that's where I record every
Yes,
week.
just so you guys, let me tell y'all how down for the cause Ryan Wilson is. We were trying to figure out a studio space in D.C. For the podcast. I'm about to throw them under the bus. iHeart told us that they had a studio that we could use, and they were not ready. They couldn't do it. And I was like, Ryan, don't y'all have a space? And Ryan was like, not only do we have a space, Tiffany is going to be welcome to record there every single week, and he has done that. And so we are so grateful for you, for the Gathering Spot family. So welcome home, y'all. We would like to get our welcome, Mayor.
Well, I mean, I heard the conversation before I came up on stage. Let me just tell y'all, we're going to win. So I'm going to start with that. So it's very important that folks in my space and everybody talk about that. The Republicans are running a confidence game on us. They did the same thing in 20 when Biden was running. All the consternation, all of the flooded polls. Trump got beat. In 2022, there was a red wave, all the consternation, all the talk, all the chatter. These people are running on a 47% platform. They can't beat us straight up. So if we get out here straight up and go do what we're talking about on this stage, let's beat these people. We need to finish this. And I don't want us to feel like this isn't in our hands. It's totally in our hands. But I do want us to go a step further than just saying, we're going to get our folks who we know should vote. All of us were involved in re-electing President Obama. All of us. I remember all of you on the trail. And that's the election that meant the most to him, because everybody thought he was going to lose, because the unemployment was above 7%. And no president had been elected with unemployment being above 7%. And the Republicans did everything they could to keep unemployment above 7%. They wouldn't send money to Florida, the I-95 corridor. They wouldn't take money in New Jersey with Chris Christie, right? And we beat them because we stayed at it. And so rather than saying that we're going to focus on getting ourselves to the polls, let's really make a list. Because Obama won by tens of votes across thousands of precincts. It's the same game. So we need to identify 5 people, 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, and let's get real about it and real specific. Actually calling them, make sure that they actually vote. Every person that you've ever done a favor for, anybody that owes you some money.
They may not answer.
You know how it, you know what I mean? Y'all know how it is when people owe you money, right? Anybody that you've done something for, call them and tell them you need help. our democracy is at risk. And you got a woman in Kamala Harris who's doing every single thing she's supposed to do. Every ridiculous hurdle they've placed in front of her. She's not talking to the press enough. She needed to do the debates. She's not talking to ordinary. Everything she's done, she's doing it. And so when I got the call to be with this extraordinary group of people, I stopped whatever I'm doing. Every time you get a chance to talk, go talk. Last night we had 100 people in the backyard, and then KC from Jodeci showed up, and it became a whole nother thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he sang Forever My Lady and killed it. Y'all know? But the point I'm making is, y'all, we can do anything for 12 days. Black people can do anything for 12 days. Give it to this woman. Give it to her.
I want to come to you, Ryan, and then
That's my welcome, y'all.
yes, that is a good welcome, because the welcome is action oriented. We also close every show with a call to action, so we'll start at a call to action. We'll take that. Ryan, you have also not only utilized this space as a galvanizing and an organizing space for this election, but you've also gone out to talk to other entrepreneurs just like yourselves and business leaders. Talk about the importance of getting folks to focus on the economics of this election, because that's what a lot of folks are talking about at the kitchen table.
Look, I agree with the mayor. Can y'all hear me? I agree with the mayor. We have to do everything possible to make sure that we do everything possible before this election. I simply just cannot look at election night and know that we didn't leave it all on the field. So we're going everywhere. Right after this conversation, I'm going to the airport and I'm going to Durham, right? Because there are small business owners there. We're going to talk about what's at stake. We're going to talk about what we need to do to make sure that we bring everyone else out to make sure that they vote. At the end of the day, y'all, I'm optimistic because I know what we can accomplish when we come together to make things happen. So these next couple of days, you asked me a question about the economy, and that's what these discussions are about. For a long time, the mayor mentioned this, there was this conversation of like, well, where's the policy, right? We don't have enough policy. Well, look, there's been a lot that's been put on the table that we've got to make sure people know about. So things like the tax exemption, moving from 5,000 to 50,000, game changer. Simple things that are in some of these white papers talking about removing red tape would be a game changer for small businesses. So all in all, once folks get the information, what we're finding is that they see that the contrast is very clear and that they go vote. I will ask everyone, if you have not voted already, please go get that out the way. And that's partially to make sure that you're counted, right? But it's also to make sure that down the stretch, you're not diverting resources to go have to knock on your door again when we need to be going to knock on somebody else's door that might not vote, right? So early voting, if you're here in Georgia, you have until the 1st. Please go vote now. And then do like the mayor said, go get somebody else.
So I want to take this moment now. There's somebody that many of us listen to most mornings. And if you don't listen to her most mornings, if you're like me, you might change your ringtone. You might need a little gospel song to get you ready. She has a radio show called Get Up with Erica, and she is a legendary gospel singer. We're bringing Erica Campbell to the stage to join us. Woo!
Hello. Hello. Testing 1 2.
Yep,
Testing
we
1
hear
2.
you.
Okay, we're good. Hey.
Welcome home,
hello.
Erica.
Thank you. Welcome home. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely honored. Absolutely honored.
I wanted to have this. We do family talk a lot on our podcast.
Yes.
And there was something, I haven't even talked to y'all about this yet. I was crying about this. I know. So there's a gospel artist named Lecrae who I adore.
Yes.
And he recently had, I just heard some groans, so y'all might have cried too. So he recently had a conversation with a Republican and a Democrat on his podcast. And they were talking about the choices in this election, which I really don't believe there are any, but they were talking about the choices. The Republican gentleman focused more on economic issues, as we were used to, despite probably being left out of Trump's plans. I digress. And the other gentleman talked about all of the hypocrisy that you see across the aisle. Lecrae said something, and I didn't watch the whole piece, so let me acknowledge that first, because I hate when people do this to me, but I'm about to do what I hate. He talked about the other side championing killing the unborn. And I think that we really have to have an honest conversation with our folks about what really is on the line and what we're talking about, because that hyperbolic rhetoric is so dangerous right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to come to you, Erica, about how you're threading that needle. I know you've been working hard for the Harris campaign. You have a conference today, and you stopped what you were doing to
Yes.
come see us before your conference. So thank you.
I did. You're welcome.
You're really laying it all in line. Can you weigh in here and what you think we can do to really make sure church folks understand that this is still a very clear contrast?
I understand at the core of what abortion is, people calling it murder. Okay, I get that. But if Jesus was here, what would he say to a woman who had to choose? He wouldn't tell her what to choose. The Bible says, I've placed before you life and death. So it is your choice. So if God lets me choose, how dare a government tell me what I can do with my body, even if I'm doing the wrong thing? So some people do choose to do the wrong thing. They'll stand before God, not their government. And I think that it is our job to remember that the government is not my pastor. And if you got faith, no matter what the economic strategy is, God still supplies all my needs according to his riches and glory. So I'm already operating on a different level. So I don't feel like even excluding somebody from the LGBTQ community, if we just honest about it, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, they already go to our churches. They already sing. They're already here. So what is it that you're really talking about, right? And so I just think that it is very hypocritical, because in my mind, when you think of when Jesus was here, who was it that was bashing him the most? The religious, we're better, you're supposed to be, follow this law, follow this rule, this says that you're religious, this is this. So if you have this unrealistic list of what it means to be a Christian and you say we are the party of Christians, how dare you imply that somebody that doesn't agree with you is lacking faith? I just think it's absurd. And I just think if God lets me choose, even if I choose the wrong thing, it's still my choice and not yours.
Thank you, Miss Erica, for taking time, being with us. May I want to circle back around on this expectations game, because you mentioned some of the flooding of the poll. I don't know if you all had read about the fact that a lot of these outlying Republican polling firms have been dumping their polls into the mix here at the last minute as a way to affect the polling averages. So when you have national polling averages, it's not just one poll. They take the poll of all the polls. And so what you're getting is a bunch of trash polls from Republicans affecting what have been some legitimate polling that has happened as way to, I think, impact what the mayor pointed to, which is expectations. And where I'd love you to pick up is, why are they trying to control the expectations game if the election may be pointing more toward a Harris win? Why would the Trump folks be attempting to control expectations?
Because hope requires courage, and people like to be a part of winning things. And you know when you're in the home stretch and you feel something that's real, you've been in real campaigns, it energizes. It's a force multiplier. But if you're down, if you're concerned, if you're worried, you're less active to go be the best version of yourself. So that's why whenever I go, Ryan and I were together the other night, I opened by saying we were going to win. And you can feel the room change just hearing it's a force multiplier. And so I think that going into the last 12 days, all of you all have been around the vice president knows she feels amazing. And these people run a confidence game. They can't beat us straight up, but they're in Georgia, and we know how to vote. Raphael Warnock won 3 elections in a row for the United States Senate, and a Jewish gentleman named John Ossoff is the other United States Senator. So they can talk that talk to us, but we know what we're doing. So I think, and the reason I'm here today is to focus on the execution, because it's that small margin. And to let people know, when we're walking around barbershops and beauty parlors, tell them we're going to win and take people on. And when people talk crazy back. Because, you know, there are folks that aren't watching this podcast. You know, I'm in the barbershop the other day. The guy's talking about Trump on the economy. I'm like, my guy. There are more black people working today than have ever worked in the history of the United States of America. My guy. Black wealth is being increasing. My guy. There's a black woman on the Supreme Court. My guy. Who are you talking? What did Trump do? It changes the room. And I'm not on the bandwagon of bashing black men, but am on the bandwagon of telling black men we owe sisters. Stop it. You don't even need to get deep. We owe sisters. When President Obama ran, black women weren't talking about. So let's not have a sophisticated conversation. I got a mama. I got a daughter. I know what a black woman being president of the United States is going to do to my daughter's brain. And you talking about Trump? He ain't for you. And so I think it's on us, Andrew, my brother Mayor, right, to be out here at it. We ain't got nothing more important than this over the next 12 days. I don't care who you are. This country's going to be changed in a way that we can't even conceive. You had a man running for president of the United States of America who stood up on TV in front of a group of people who claimed to be Christians and said, if we get this election over with, y'all won't have to worry about voting anymore. Come on now. So Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Meech's going home.
Big
That
Meech.
matters.
Right? He did his time. I'm for all of the talk. When they marched Kwame Kilpatrick out of, when Trump freed Kwame Kilpatrick, he was trying to do what? He was trying to influence an election. So I'm with all of the process. So that's what I came here to be, I'm for it. I got 3 more of these a day.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Mayor. Tiff.
I just wanted to pick up on what you said because I appreciate your words that black men owe sisters. But I just want to say, brothers, you owe yourself. You owe yourself because black women, when we win, y'all win. We are one. They can't deny us. And her policies, she had a whole policy rollout just for y'all. You ain't doing us a favor by voting for her. We are locked arms as a community. There is no other community on this earth like black folks. When they try to divide us and talk about how violent we are, all these things, ain't no, you drop me in any neighbor. I can go to all y'all's house for Thanksgiving and I know the rules. That matters, Black women, we could have a whole conversation and not utter a word. Y'all know, we get that look. She was already on cue. Exactly. Those things matter. So I love your words, Mayor Reed, but I just want to make that clear to brothers. All this talk about black men doing this, black men, I've never believed it. I never doubted y'all for 1 second because I know y'all because y'all are me.
I want to ask you all before you head out what your most significant issue was. If you had the privilege to be a single issue voter in this election, what would be your most important issue?
We talk a lot about small business here, and there's some real important reasons why, right? 96% of our businesses don't employ anybody. 45% of black folks in Atlanta have delinquent debt. And I got in trouble for saying this a couple months ago, but it's the truth. If you think about it, right, this is Spellhouse's homecoming weekend, and it's an important occasion. Yeah, shout out to y'all. They didn't let me in. But when you think about it, no matter where you graduate, right, PWI or HBCU, unfortunately, you are probably going to work at a PWI. And that's because too many of our businesses don't employ anybody, right? So the research is very clear, right? If we were to get more businesses in our community to a place where they were employing more people in our community, that is an expand the pie moment that's good for everybody. So that's what we're talking about in this election. We've got to get access to capital to our businesses. We've got to make sure that we're not just talking about starting, but we're also talking about scaling, knowing that if we do that effectively, our neighborhoods will be better. Personally, you will see the impact, right? Because in this city, I know a lot of people who are doing really well. All of those people are still going to go to a table in a couple of weeks where statistically there's going to be poverty at the table. So we've got to get to a place where we have the opportunity. I heard from one of our investors one time. He was like, look, there's only 2 ways to make money in America. You have to own something or you have to invest in something. Most black folks are not doing either one of those 2 things right now. So it's hard to put it down to one issue, but it connects to so many of the other things that we're trying to combat every single day because our businesses are too small. I love y'all. I'm actually about to go talk about this same thing in North Carolina. So if you know anybody in Durham tonight, tell them that we're doing what we're called economic freedom talks, and we're having this discussion talking about what's on the table. But come back and see us at TGS. I appreciate y'all. Y'all are
Thank you,
welcome to come
Ryan.
here
We love
anytime.
you, Ryan. Thank
See
you.
y'all soon.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to come to you because I got a two-parter for you, Erica, before you go to this conference.
Yes.
Mine is, I like living in a democracy. I like being able to vote. And going to Tiffany's point, the fact of the matter is, just when we're about to be able to run stuff, they want to change democracy. So as the country moves towards being where no one has a majority, right? They want to change the game. So I'm voting for a democracy. Fairer is harder. The more rights people have, the harder it is. And they're offering a Hitler-based alternative. So that's mine. I like democracy. I like being able to vote.
Love that, Erica.
I would say education. I would say, why aren't we teaching taxes in high school? Why aren't we talking about economics? And while we teach government and the different branches, they don't even teach that anymore. They don't write in cursive anymore. Like, there's so many things that they don't teach that would equip them to be prepared for what is to come. Why aren't we teaching them empathy and compassion and different things like that in our education system, which is so broken? I went to public school, so I get it. And my kids are even in public school with all that I do. And so when I see things, I say things. So I would be voting for education.
So the last question I have for you, Erica, and I know you guys have to run off. I just have been watching the Souls to the Polls effort.
Yes.
I've been watching faith leaders fight. We just talked about one of the discussions I saw most recently. I would love for you to issue just a call to action for believers at home and for those in the audience today. I think all these folks are going to vote or have already voted. Yeah. But what is the thing that you're saying, this is what I need for you to do as you get ready to take your faith behind to the polls? What do you
Yes, yes.
I stand behind y'all.
I would say, if you have a church and your church is in a community and that community is struggling, you need to vote. If your parishioners are struggling financially, you need to vote. If your seniors in your church are struggling with Social Security and don't have what they need, you need to vote. So you need faith, but you also need to take that faith and put it in action outside the church. You don't become a believer to just sit in the building. You become a believer to go out into the world, to teach people, to help people, encourage people. And so that's why believers should vote. Take your faith-filled self to the polls and vote.
Can I ask real quick?
Yeah,
I just got one quick question before the mayor leaves. I think there is a growing concern out there in the country, especially among Black folks, that when Vice President becomes President-elect Harris, how insufferable will Howard alumni be across the country?
Oh my God!
You already know. You already know. I mean, you won't be able to go.
You already know.
You won't be able to go nowhere without hearing.
That's what I thought.
You know it's gonna be terrible. We'll discuss that on
Terribly
the 6th, though.
good. Terribly
You're
good.
gonna have earaches all over the country. You all the.
We'll take y'all being insufferable for our freedom, won't we all? Thank you all so much. Kasim Reed and to Erica Campbell. Have a wonderful conference, sis. We appreciate y'all. Thank you so much,
everybody.
Welcome home, y'all. Okay, while we're transitioning, we have our next panelist coming up from the ACLU. I want to just remind you all that you are welcome to come to this center mic to raise any question or comment to the audience. So feel free, or to our panelists and to each other, to the audience. So feel free to come up. When you do come up, make sure that you say your name and where you're from in true NLP fashion. Joining us now is Andrea Young, who is the executive director of ACLU in Georgia. She is doing some tremendous work, which we are going to hear about. And one of my favorite things is the legacy that is sitting before us. This is the daughter of Ambassador Andy Young. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's give her, listen to all that. If everybody's excited about that, I love it.
And I hate to say it, but another Howard. So yes, the Howard people, you won't be able to say nothing to them.
Did we come to Howard homecoming by accident? Howard is here, right?
Howard is here. So yes, and that was our, one of our mayors. We've had Black mayors for a long time in the city. That's kind of how we roll. So, and all about empowerment and, as he said, democracy, because democracy is how we got here. Yes.
No, I was just going to say, speaking, first of all, thank you for the work that you do.
Yes.
I'm a monthly member, contributor.
Thank you so much.
Florida, of course. But you all, we've been saying for a long time, the most important election, the most important election. I got to imagine
Yeah.
that when we're faced with the potential of a fascist on the other side, that for the ACLU,
Yes.
this has really got to be, we're at a DEFCON, DEFCON 5 at this
Yeah.
point.
And, and just to say, we are meeting nonstop and preparing. We have all the legal papers ready. We saw, what happened in 2020, and, we are prepared. And we're working, in advance. I mean, here in Georgia and in every battleground state, the ACLU is working to make sure people can vote unhindered, that they don't change the rules in the middle of the game, and that afterwards the votes get counted, they get certified, they get sent up to Washington, to be for the Electoral College. So we're working on all fronts, all across the country, and especially with the focus on the battleground states.
We love that. And I would just ask for the ACLU, what do you fear most in the changing of our democracy should there be a Trump 2.0?
Well, I came to Georgia during segregation. So, I don't have to imagine, I remember, because really, Langston Hughes said Jim Crow is a fascist regime, right? So we know, and our grandparents know, what this could look like. And, the ACLU was very involved in stopping the family separation policy, so people who will do that, we don't know how low they can go.
I want to ask you. You all have been instrumental in the state election board's recent hand counting rule, and you all are fighting the good fight, whether we know it or not. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
We talked about it on our podcast as well,
Thank
but
you.
to hear from someone on the front lines, I think is really, really important to our listeners.
Yeah. So, the ACLU is working on the right to vote 24/7, 365 days. We don't just do it in election years. So we've been monitoring the election boards every month when they meet. We have volunteers that go. We monitor the state election board. We go in the legislature to try to keep them from changing the rules. So they changed the rules to make the state election board essentially a MAGA, advocacy group. And they came up with about 7 rules that would have made it easy to prevent certification of the vote in Georgia. So we sued and were able to actually get 2 different judges ruled, Judge McBurney and Judge Tom Cox, who basically smacked down 7 of them and said they were acting outside of their authority. And so the rules that were in place during the primary will pretty much be the rules under which we are operating this election. But it takes relentless effort to, as the church folks say, the devil is busy. So it takes a relentless effort to keep access to the ballot. So at the ACLU, we believe voting should be easy for everyone, and everyone votes and you accept the result. That's democracy. Now that Georgia, only 52% of Georgia voters self-identify as white. So as Mayor Reed said, now that you see, this real opportunity for, we've already elected, Senator Warnock, Senator Ossoff statewide, that are folks who are pro-choice, pro-democracy, interested in criminal legal reform, interested in, access to capital for, communities of color. Now that we've elected those kinds of leaders, there is that possibility. Let's keep this going. And politics is and voting is how you make the folks who make decisions be responsive to your priorities.
I want to ask some local issues here. I really appreciate the point you made about Atlanta having black mayors. I hope Atlanta always has a black mayor. And it's been shaky a few elections, but my mother worked for Bill Campbell. My grandmother grew up not far from here. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school here. So this city means a lot. I haven't lived here in over 25 years. When I left, it was not the demographics that I see now. Atlanta is important because I think it's a message to every city in Mississippi, every city in Alabama, every city in Arkansas. What have you seen happen here that harnesses Black power in a way where we are flexing this political muscle now that other cities perhaps can mimic?
So I think one of the things I look at is in terms of the agency of the Black community is what Maynard Jackson's grandfather called the book, the ballot, and the buck. Right. So we have the education. You use your political power, and you use that for economic power. And while, as I said, we're not where we need to be, and of course, all of this has been taking place, you're working against a state, that doesn't believe in even Medicaid expansion. You're working against a federal government that has withdrawn resources for housing. There's no such thing as welfare. The kinds of things that used to sustain people and allow them to move up. So we're working against, some very difficult national and state trends. But it's that kind of understanding. But one of the things you do with your political power is, as Ryan said, you want to create the opportunity for economic power. But at the same time, if you have economic power, Black folk have always created wealth, but we don't keep it unless we have the political power to defend our businesses, defend our communities, and defend our access to, our ability really to prosper. Because in the South, if you get too uppity, somebody will come, burn your stuff down in the past, right?
One of the things that we addressed at the top is the angst that some folks are feeling about this election. You're doing the work that would hopefully prevent us as a collective from experiencing that type of angst. What can this audience do? And you all are still welcome to ask questions. I am very surprised because normally NLP fan be all up in the mic and in the camera. So please ask questions with this genius we have sitting here, this wonderful attorney. So I would love to hear what you think folks can do to prevent that angst. How can they support ACLU? What are the things that we should be doing?
Right. Well, as Andrew said, we do take individual donations and our our monthly supporters, and it's actually because we are supported by individuals, not by big mega. We don't get corporate government, which means we are independent and we work for the people. And we will persist, but people have to vote, right? We have to talk people through their anxieties and concerns. You heard some of the things Kasim had to say, that we have to help folks understand that while Trump put his name on the check, it was the Black caucus that got that check, right? It was the efforts. It was he wasn't trying to give that money to folks. You have to help people understand. I think President Obama said, that was my economy that you inherited, right? Help people really understand that what the realities are, and there is a lot of disinformation, a lot of very intentional. We've heard that Russia, China, and Iran are all trying to throw this to Donald Trump. Why is that? We are the example of a multiracial, multicultural democracy. There's so much more that we can do. And we're not, as we said, we have, so really talking to people, meeting with them where they are, asking them what is really important to them. Sometimes people think that, I don't know, have they heard about the 1 million public servants that got loan forgiveness? And of course, reproductive rights, understand that when they struck down Roe v. Wade, they didn't just say you can't have an abortion. They also struck down the law that says the government can't sterilize you, right? And so this thing of reproductive choice and freedom goes both ways, right? If the government can tell you that you have to continue a pregnancy, they can tell you that you can't have a pregnancy. And we know that this has happened to Black women in the past. So this thing, when we talk about reproductive justice, Black women disproportionately die from maternal, maternal health. Uh, Infant mortality was too high in our community before Roe v. Wade. Now that they've struck down Roe v. Wade, they are undermining the ability of women to get reproductive health care. We see maternal mortality and infant mortality going up in this very, not because the ability isn't there to save people's lives, but because the government is saying and tying the hands of physicians when they are trying to deliver health care.
I have a question.
Yes.
State your name.
Yes, I'm Brandon Carter. I live here in Atlanta. And my question is, a lot of people feel that Trump's presidency was retribution for Obama's election. 2020, we know January 6th was retribution for Biden's, and then all of the laws that were passed was because of that. Do you feel that there's going to be a retribution when Harris wins?
Not if we keep voting. People, there was a big outpouring. People came out and voted for Obama, and you have to keep it going. So we also at the ACLU have a saying called hope, vote, advocate. Voting is the beginning. You then have to advocate, for the things that you want your elected officials to do. And we have to keep voting. I think Spelman has a thing about for donations, like every woman, every year, like don't just give on your alumni year. And it's the same thing. We have to vote every year. We can't just vote every 4 years. Even with Obama, he didn't keep the Congress that he needed to let him continue his agenda. So we are, even the only reason this is even a discussion is because we have the Electoral College, which is rooted in, the defense of slavery. But if you look at the popular vote, Hillary won the popular vote, right? And so based on the popular vote, George Bush shouldn't have been president, and Trump shouldn't have been president if we had a system where the popular vote winner was one. So yes, so the thing is that we just have to keep at it. There will always be pushback, but I think the people who believe in a fair and just and multiracial America, I believe, are the majority. But we have to believe it, and we have to keep voting like it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I think there will be retribution. I get your point about keep voting and political retribution, but I am fully braced for political violence in this country when President Kamala Harris wins. I think we've already seen evidence of that, and as Black folks, we already know how violent white people can be when they don't get their way. So I'm very braced for what comes next, personally.
I also think there'll be political policy retribution. I think the Senate is probably going to go Republican. They already stole the Supreme Court seat from Obama a year out from the election, yet they gave three to Trump, and one within weeks, a few months of the election. I think they're going to be poised to prevent her from moving her agenda on day zero. The people who we are in bed with for the purposes of getting her elected, these former Trumpers who are now never Trumpers or whomever, they've already got the opinion pages written for when she gets there. This isn't what we thought we would get. She's more liberal than we expected. So I think we should gear up for that to the point, which is why we have to keep voting and keep supporting her, because the enemy line is already, I think,
But
wrong.
Beyonce is going to Texas now. Colin Allred is on. Nebraska.
Focus.
They're talking about Nebraska.
Right
in Florida, the abortion issue is on the ballot. That has always brought out voters who believe in freedom. So I'm an optimist till they count the votes.
Good way to be.
And we have another question. Tell us your name and where you're from, sir.
Afternoon, welcome home, y'all.
Home.
My name is Earl West. I'm from Seattle, Washington.
All right, now the 206.
You know that already.
All round boy repping the 206.
Garfield, class of '84, same as your brother.
Same as my brother and my daddy, but
And your
literally
dad.
my brother's Have you talked to him? I haven't talked to him.
No, I haven't talked to him.
Okay, I was
But
just checking.
I was with your father at our 100-year reunion up in Seattle, so I do have a picture of that. But my comment and question, my comment will lead to a question. But um, uh, just the other day, I was over at a black-owned boutique, and in line talking to some brothers, the importance of voting, and one of them was a libertarian, which was confusing to me because you had a black-owned boutique. Ironic, but it's more of information and how information is being gathered and distributed, and where we can find that information. Because I'm having to combat the information out there just by talking to some of these brothers, because I don't believe that the black man thing is real. Because I have moms, sisters, aunts, and every nephews, nieces. So I have to vote as the poet and lyricist and sports expert once said, we vote based on harm reduction. You know, so
Thank you for respecting my sports knowledge.
you know it.
Thank you.
I got you. You know, so the way I vote is based on what I have in my family. But is there a way, as far as getting the information out and making sure that I'm speaking the truth to these young brothers, to make sure I am pointing them in the right direction? Because I see that a lot sometimes everywhere I go. I make sure that I vote. I tell the people that work for me, you take the day off, go vote, whatever you need to do. So if there's a way that I can get that information and get that information to the people, that would be a good thing for me.
Andrea, I'd love for you to
Well,
answer.
you know, our website, ACLUGA.org, has all the information about, you know, links to where to vote, how to vote. You know, we have talking, you know, different issue points, but particularly right now is just the, you know, getting the where to go. And I appreciate your point about harm reduction, because, you know, we do a lot of that right now, and it's real, right? It makes a difference.
And why don't I see, like, the comments that J.D. Vance said about Trump on the air 24/7? You know,
Right.
there's some things that I think we should be saying and seeing that
Yeah.
the Republicans have said
Yeah.
about this guy, and why
Yeah.
don't we see these things 24/7?
Good point.
It baffles me. We should.
You know, I'm gonna tell you all. Leonard and I did CNN last night.
Yes, I saw it.
And yeah, it ended up going viral. And part of it was honestly a continuation of the conversation we had on our podcast. We talked about fascism. And of course, you've already mentioned today that Jim Crow is a form of fascism. And so one of the things that I brought up was, I remember being on air, and this is getting to your point, being on air, and I was said that Donald Trump was racist. It was one of the first times I think that it's been said on cable news. And Anderson was moderating the conversation. He was like, well, what are you basing that on? I'm like, his history. So I start running things down. But it was a very tense moment on air, not just with Anderson, but with the whole panel. Because like, oh, you can't say that. How dare you say that? Yes, I can. Here are all the facts. So I brought up the point that when Kamala Harris was asked at the town hall if she thought Donald Trump was a fascist, not is he a fascist, but if she thought he was a fascist, it got so much more press attention than the fact that her chief of staff, a former Department of Homeland Security secretary, said that he is a fascist and defined the terms.
Right.
So that is one of the things that we should be saying. I also want to acknowledge we are saying it a lot, and that's why we did our podcast the way we did. We went through and defined what fascism is, examples of fascism. These guys go overseas a lot more than me in their commentary. I stay domestic as much as I can. There's enough going on over here. But they are brilliant at this. They talk about the ways in which we've seen fascism historically and through other parts of the world. We have to emphasize that. People are like, it can't get worse. Yes, it can. It
Yes, it
absolutely can. So that's
Well, I wanted to say about the newsroom, because I think that's a significant thing. You know, that's my constant beef. Cable news, y'all have seen, like they have centered a shrinking demographic. They center the interest and comfort of conservative white folks. They have no interest in censoring us, and that's why we've seen their numbers continue to decline over the years, and media has become more democratized, so other people have a voice. The sad part about that is that opens up a door for a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And so we don't see a lot of the just actual facts because they have a vested interest in feeding you all this narrative where you have angst around this election. So what do you do when you wake up? You want to put on CNN and watch that all day to see what this poll said at 11 o'clock. Maybe it's going to say something different at noon. They have turned the news platform into reality television. Let's go find somebody to say it's raining outside, and then let's go find somebody to say it's sunny outside, as though they themselves are not reporters to say we can demonstrably say it is a sunny day, it is not raining. They treat both of these sentiments and statements as though they are facts when they are clearly not. There's also a comfort, right? Less than 6% of all newsroom staff is Black. And so when you have all of these people and they say, well, my grandmother voted for Trump. She likes Trump and she's not a bad person. P.S. Yes, she is. My auntie, my
Bad
mom,
decision.
my dad did all these things. She's not a bad. Yes, they are. And so they extend humanity to these folks in a way that they can never extend to us. We can get shot right on camera and they still got to be the perfect victim. Then it's still a question. We have to die in spectacular ways to pierce the white narrative of what's happened to us. But when it comes to their politics, their platform, they got all the humanity in the world. So I discourage people, really. I am more of a reader now than I am a watcher. Watch Joy read, please, every night on MSNBC at 7 p.m. She is holding it down. But outside of that, I don't see a lot of truly intellectual discourse from these people who get so many of our eyes and our viewership and our dollars.
So just two quick things. One on Tiffany's point on the media. One of the strategies with fascism in its earliest stages is the assassination of facts, so that no one becomes the arbiter of what is true and what is false. And now you don't have a source that we can call a main source because everybody's a main source. The stuff you get on your feed, the stuff through social media, somebody's Snapchat video to you becomes a primary source. So the assault on facts is number one. And who introduced that in large form? Donald Trump, when they began with alternative facts. Oh, that's just another way to see it. And we adopted that there are now alternative facts as a legitimate form of describing another set of facts. Not true, fascism. And then to the point of when we speak about Iran and Russia, foreign actors' intrusion in our elections, it's not that they're sending missiles and bombs and folks into our country. They're taking what exists in our country as natural rifts between communities, between peoples, and then they are exploding those rifts and what push notifications you get, what information, what shows up as whatever in your Instagram, and you're like, I ain't follow this person, but they're still showing up in your feeds. That's they have sophisticated technology where they are deliberately interfering with what you see on your screen. So when we talk about Black men, they're not making it up what they hear, what they heard, what they thought were facts. It is being deliberately sent to them in oversaturated form so that it becomes a fact, the truth. All right?
Absolutely. I want to give you the opportunity to any parting words. I know you have to go, and we're bringing up our next panel. But before you do,
I just want. Well, thank you for doing this. You can't say enough about how important this election is, and one of the things we do, of course, is defend the right to free speech and the right to protest. And so understand that we can disagree with a President Harris. You won't be able to disagree with a President Trump. And he's already promised to send the military, to send the National Guard after people who don't agree with him and support him. So if nothing else, understand that we had to fight for the kind of demonstrations that we saw with the George Floyd, the Women's March. We had to fight for the right to do that. And that is also a right, along with reproductive rights, along with voting rights, that are on the ballot right now, because voting is happening in Georgia, North Carolina, right now. So please participate and take 5 friends.
Andrea Young, Executive Director from ACLU. We are so grateful for your partnership and for being here today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have the opportunity to welcome to the stage some additional women champions and queens. Joining us from the from Georgia. She is a Democratic member of Congress and a CBC member, so she's CBC fam. This is Congresswoman Nikema Williams. We also have someone who's becoming a legend before our eyes, fighting the good fight to ensure access to capital and equity for businesses and business owners who look like us. It's Arian Simone from the Fearless Fund. She got some fans in here. And certainly not least,
in a rattler.
Oh, they look at them going interrupt
I knew
the
you were
whole
going to
set.
bring that
Look at
up,
this here.
Andrew.
Look at this.
I knew it.
Okay, no problem. We love y'all. Y'all got to sit down now. We also have joining us our good friend and sister, Kimberly Blackwell, who runs a magnificent marketing company, PMM agency, and is a business strategist extraordinaire.
Dimples.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you all for joining us. Nikema, I want to start with you. You sit on financial services. You are dealing with kitchen table issues every day in committee. I know that we did a roundtable with you, with Arian. I want you to talk about the fight that we're up against, particularly if Democrats don't take over the House. What does it look like for people who are just trying to make ends meet, who are trying to access capital, who think DEI doesn't mean didn't earn it, but actually means diversity, equity, and inclusion are abundantly important?
Absolutely. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Georgia's Fighting 5th Congressional District. I am Congresswoman Nikema Williams, and so happy to be here having this conversation with people that I've been in this fight with, and it is still ongoing, y'all. So as a member of the House Financial Services Committee, y'all, I've been in Congress for 2 years, well, 2 sessions, 2 terms, and my first year in Congress, I was appointed to the very powerful House Financial Services Committee, and one of my subcommittees was the subcommittee on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I served on that committee for 2 years under the leadership of my chairwoman, Joyce Beatty. And then, y'all, I got reelected to my second term in Congress, and Democrats were no longer in control. And the first thing that they did in our organizational meeting is they got rid of the entire subcommittee. So there is no longer a subcommittee on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the House Financial Services Committee. And we looked at our chairman and we asked, well, what was this about? And he said, well, we're going to include it in everything that we do. But we all know that means it's not going to be included in nothing. And then we are under attack at every angle. And I'm sure you'll hear more about that shortly. But in the House Financial Services Committee, where everything that you can think of that impacts us building generational wealth and our financial well-being in this country, especially as Black people, goes through that committee. Housing is in that committee. Every banking industry that you can think of, not just traditional banks, but fintech. And now we're writing the rules of the road when it comes to digital assets and what that looks like, all goes through this committee with no lens for DEI because that entire committee was gotten rid of. So as we're going through this election cycle, we got 11 days, but who's counting? I am. But 11 days, and here in Battleground, Georgia, we understand what's at stake. So when we talk about our freedoms being on the ballot, it includes our economic freedom. It includes our ability to build that generational wealth so that we can close the racial wealth gap that is so persistent in this country. Even here in Atlanta, where we're the mecca for Black people coming to build wealth. I moved here from rural Alabama. Shout out to my HBCU, Talladega College. Moved here after college looking for the opportunity that I knew that leaders before me, like my predecessor, I don't know if Andrea is still here, but Ambassador Andrew Young, who held this seat before Congressman John Lewis. And so moved here looking for this opportunity, and now knowing that my city is leading the country in the racial wealth gap. And there are so many forces trying to keep us there. But we know that in 11 days, we have options on the ballot. We have work to do to make sure that we are victorious. And when I show up to the polls, because I haven't banked my votes yet, but when I have a plan So when I show up and cast my vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for our future, a vote for our economic freedom. Because when we're disbanding committees like DEI in the House Financial Services Committee, it is quite telling where the Republicans in this country are and what they think about us being able to close that racial wealth gap and build generational wealth within our communities.
Thank you for that, Congresswoman, and we're extremely proud of you. Another person who we're proud of is Arian, the Rattler community all over, but I think all over the country. We've borne witness to your fight. And I say your fight, but I know it's your fight on behalf of all of us, right? We hope to see you in Detroit last week. What up, though? We were there at your home city. Uh-oh.
Can y'all leave the mics on? Because this is a very interactive podcast. Let's leave the mics on.
You guys are going to every city I've lived in.
Yes.
My hometown, Detroit, my home here, and FAMU.
The real home.
Yes.
But
he's not biased.
But Arian, I want you to talk about, a lot of us have followed the ebbs and flows of this fight. I'd love for you to give this audience and our listenership an update on where we are as it relates to protecting women's access to Black women's access.
I'm Arian Simone. I'm CEO of the Fearless Fund. We're the nation's first venture capital fund that's built by women of color for women of color. And literally, we had opposition way before a lawsuit. So I want people to understand that when people see that this lawsuit is over, they're like, oh, she can breathe. Yeah, to an extent. To an extent, the opposition still exists. Women of color are the most founded entrepreneurial demographic, just the least funded, receiving only 0.39% of venture capital funds. The industry is ran 92% white male. Now, that doesn't even include any other men, like as far as other races, 92% white male. So that just shows you, due to the numbers, there's opposition way before a court case. Right now, our case is permanently dismissed, thank God. That's a clap.
Thank you, Lord.
Kim said, thank you, Lord, because she was in plenty of the meetings with us and plenty of the late night strategizing. So literally, even as soon as this week, we've been dealing with people trying to shut our fund down. Conversations, Angela, I have yet to even inform you of. Like, this is still a situation. Just because you don't see it in a lawsuit, the enemies of equity and equality are real, and they have a problem with us running this business. Prior to the Fearless Fund existing, a Black woman's average fundraise was only $30,000, and we are still cutting seven-figure checks. We came on the scene cutting them, and we're still cutting them. And it is very disruptive. It's just very disruptive, but right now, legally, we're good. But honestly, this is not a matter of where the private sector should be having to defend this. This is more of a policy issue. That's what it is at its core, which is why I was so excited when Congresswoman Williams was on the panel. I said, wait a minute. I showed her my to-do list. I said,
at the top of it was
yes. I said, you're on my call list today. I said, we'll chat right after this. But really, it's because that's what it is. It's a policy issue. There was a time, as we all know, when slavery was legal, but that doesn't mean it's right. So we have to fix some of our policies in order to protect marginalized communities so that everybody can achieve the American dream.
Errin, I just want to pick up on something that you said, because I think it's so important to understand those numbers when it comes to when you have a business idea and you go to get funded. There was research that came out, I think 2018, on Rate My VC. So you talked about the numbers of who is on the other side of that table. The number of Black people at that time who were VCs was less than 0.2%. And those white boys they were making it rain on anybody with an idea, and you watch their businesses crumble time after time. Black businesses had to struggle, and they were thriving. This research found that because of Black businesses getting denied, that the United States missed out on multi-billion dollars in economic opportunity. Racism does not pay. So thank you for what you do.
And thank 1 second, and I know we got to get to Kim, but I want people to understand how this industry actually works. So the largest investor in private equity and venture capital, the industry I work in, are pension funds. I work in a $62 trillion industry. So on the ground floor, you have pension funds.
You say that number again, $62
trillion.
Trillion.
Trillions. Not billions, trillions. So on the ground floor, you have these pension funds that are the largest investors. You're talking teachers. You're talking firefighters. You're talking police officers. Ground floor right here. Then that money goes up to the $62 trillion industry that is controlled by 92% white men, that then goes into the white startups, and it very rarely makes it all the way down in a circle back to the people of color who are very much so highly populated in the teachers, the police officers, and the fire workers and everybody else where this money was made off of. So if you know any public workers or anybody with pension funds, you tell them, hey, if you're gonna put my money somewhere, it has to come back to my community.
You know, Kim, I love that, Arian, you said that it is a public policy issue, and it is. But one of the things that we know is that public policy doesn't change without pressure. So I love that you're up here, Kim, in part because of your own role on boards, the important role that boards play. That is also politics, right? Y'all are voting members of an entity that control how dollars are spent for a corporation. Please, for a moment, talk about the very significant role that board members play in shifting corporate policy and how that impacts groups like what Arian has started with Fearless Fund.
Okay. So one, thank you all for having me. I will tell you that in the same way that we have public policy, there's governance, as Angela mentioned, in corporate America and the private sector. I'm a 25-year-old, young founder. Founded my business right out of college, scaled it to a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Thank you, Jesus. But with that being said, some of my primary partners are of corporate America. And so when you look at where and how we are discussing DEI now, and I'm gonna kind of throw a little bit in here that might be kind of an interesting twist, because while I certainly believe in the commitment to DEI unequivocally, I want us to also remember it's chestnut checkers. And sometimes I think that we need to make sure that we're looking at the commitment rather than the merchandising. And so for me, to your point, as it relates to duty, when I'm sitting in a board seat or when I'm advising to chairman of Fortune 100 of the C-suite, we are looking at it from a standpoint of inclusion and commitment. I don't need to necessarily see DEI. I don't need to see those words. I do need to see the business plan. I do need to see the accountability. And most importantly, I want us to be able to show the business value to where and how those things are reached. Because I'm going to tell y'all, in anything, by way of what doesn't get measured won't matter. So for me, it's about how are we accounting to the metrics and measurement and outcomes. Because what we know is that inclusion is good business. This week in Atlanta is the National Minority Supplier Development Council Conference. I'm certified as a minority women business enterprise. I'm certified as a women's business enterprise. With that said, Magic Johnson hosted something this week. With that, he had Tony Ressler, one of the owners of the Hawks, who stood before as the title sponsor to say that in all of his enterprises, he's looking at where and how inclusion is good business. When you talk to Derek Johnson and others, again, I want us to look at where and how we play the game. You know, Angela introduced me as a strategist, and all of this becomes strategic. Sometimes we are a little bit lost in the tactics of things, and we need to stay at the macro. But with Angela's comment, we have to have seats at the table. And after George Floyd, you did see a spike in increase by way of representation of many on boards, whether it was women, Black, Latino. And I want to say this to our Latino brothers and sisters too. You know, you talk about where and how we are underrepresented and under-marginalized. When I'm going out and doing campaigns as it relates to building business strategies for corporations, it's harder sometimes to find them in the leadership seats. So, you know, we have to look at this as a collective force and get out of the game of marginalizing all these different verticals and understand that the power is really in the collaboration and making sure that the representation and the accountability, because you can't go in there scared. See, and those folks who know me, and I operate from a spirit of humility, but I also understand where and how. When I'm in the room and at the table, I operate from the side of making sure that right is discussed. I don't have to lead. They can see that I'm a Black woman, but we need to discuss in the sense of business and what is right and be able to show that as business leaders. And that's how we begin and continue to move the needle.
I appreciate you bringing up the Latino community, Kim, because we have had this discussion on our podcast routinely. What we see happening in some communities across the country, I, I hate to see any of us use the white man's, the oppressor's tools or language. Mm-hmm. This country has not been kind to any community of color. In 2044, there will be no racial majority. So we could win together or we could lose divided. And I think we have to acknowledge that, for one, we talk about this as well, the Latino community for the first time has eclipsed the Black community in terms of eligible voters, not registered voters, but eligible voters. Of course, and I will acknowledge there are anti-Black sentiments in every community, but more often than not, we are trying to work together. So as they make migrant crime an issue, which is not an issue, is significantly gone. This is a lie, a fallacy. When they try to divide us, when they make us fight over resources, we're literally fighting each other over crumbs while they're sitting across watching that happen, eating a steak. So I just want to make sure when you hear those kind of sentiments, please combat it. Please say that that's not our enemy. That's our ally. And the Fred Hampton approach, that's why he was so powerful and killed by the state. The Fred Hampton approach said, let me go tell you, everybody, including poor white people, how we can work together. So shout out to you for acknowledging the Latino community is underrepresented.
And why you saying that? You had a question, so right? You didn't have a question. Okay.
And another guy had a question and went back to his seat. So I don't want you to think y'all welcome. Yeah, we just had to get through.
We just got into it, but come on.
Yes, come on up.
The only other thing I wanted to add, because I think as we look at the segmentation, and I'm wearing this sweatshirt today that represents all of the Black female leaders as it relates to Fortune 100 CEOs, and they sit and lead as directors of some of the largest global brands that we know. Is also understanding too, let's not leave out white women. And I say that because we haven't really talked about that as much. No.
They laughing because there's a podcast for this.
You haven't been interrupted yet. I'm impressed when you said let's not leave out white
Well,
women.
because
Shut up, Andrew.
too, you know, we have to look at, and she used the word ally. In my world, and especially in the space of business, I'm looking for accomplice, you know, because to me, you got to be willing to go out there. And I was reading some articles, and there's all this stuff out there about where and how, you know, Jamie Dimon is privately supporting candidate X, and Bill Gates just gave $50 million to, you know, candidate X. And all of these things being said, there is a principle in courageous leadership, right? And I think, too, as we look at where our great sister Joteka Edie sparked this whole catalyst around building community, to your point, Tiffany, we really need to hone in. They started the, white women for Kamala, same white women are underrepresented in leadership in corporate America. We need to find those commonalities to look at it in the standpoint by way of policy and by way of protocol and where and how we are changing things, systemic inequities, systemic. And that's work. And that's work that means that we have to do it together.
We better find them commonalities after they find this chastiser. Real quick, let me come to you for this question. So that just say your name and where you're from. And then, y'all, we are overtime on this panel. We love y'all. We're going to keep talking about this. But I do want to come to you.
How y'all doing? My name is Mario Reyes, originally from the Bronx, New York, calling Atlanta home. New York's everywhere.
To Atlanta.
Thank you. I actually sit really knee-deep in the trenches in Atlanta when it comes to Black men. I'm a board member here at TGS. I'm a board member with Undugu. I'm a board member with Black Man Lab. And I see about 1,000 men faces weekly. And one of the things that has come up time and time again, so I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, brother, that you guys have to fight very hard for the Black male vote. And it's because they feel betrayed by the Democratic Party. They don't feel like they represent them. And I also feel like they've been taken for granted. So how can I, sitting in front of them, combat a lot of the misinformation that they've been fed time and time again? And just a follow-up comment, I am Afro-Latino, Bronx Boricua all day. That being said, colorism is pervasive in every community, of course. And I have to constantly remind my Latino brothers and sisters that just because their skin may be lighter, don't mean that white privilege extends to them. And I'm often combated with that. Furthermore, especially obviously Black women withstanding, a lot of women in the Caucasian and Latina community are scared and don't believe America's ready for a female president. And I look at that kind of as cutting your nose off to spite your face, right? And I guess my biggest question first is, how do I combat the misinformation? Is there just a simple website where I could see?
Well, I want to ask you, because you said Black men feel betrayed by the Democratic Party. I want to be clear. We are not mouthpieces for the Democratic Party.
Understood. I am the chairwoman of our state Democratic
we
Party.
You'll be the mouthpiece for that.
We don't diss that.
To ever hold this position, and I hired the first Black man to ever be the executive director of our state Democratic Party. And Kevin, raise your hand. Kevin is here with us today.
Shout out,
leading
Kevin.
the charge. So
Hi,
we
Kevin.
are making sure
Thank
that
you,
Black men are
Kevin.
not overlooked on our watch. I am married to a Black man. I'm raising my 9-year-old son to be a Black man. And this is something, we are in this together. I hear it all the time. And my pushback is we're showing up to do the work. And it shows in the work that we're doing, not just the word of mouth that you'll hear in an election cycle. And I hear you, Angela, we're over time. And so I would love to connect you with Kevin so that we can get you those resources.
Well, you said something really specific that I want to touch on. You said you show up. And a lot of times these great panels show up behind the gate. So people can't afford the gathering spot, so they're not privy to this conversation.
But Ryan opened it up for everyone, so we would let
I'm
people
sure
register.
I know we
I
changed.
showed up to Washington Park on 2 days ago with the community for a barbecue and ballots event with Pastor Troy. Not showing up here at the gathering spot. I mean, open events for the community. I represent this community. I live in Southwest Atlanta, and every day I am leading in this community for the people that I serve. And I know that I cannot do this alone. It takes whole communities, and that includes our Black
This is such a big disconnect, and I
it
would
is.
like to.
I
would like
wanna
to offer
hear,
myself to help mend that.
Thank you.
What do Black men feel? Because I think this is such an important point you're making. I want to hear, what do Black men feel that they've been left out of or disrespected by?
But from the Democratic Party,
Yeah, like what are
I've
the
heard
things you're
everything
hearing?
about financial progress, the way that the nuclear family is now propagated because they feel there's an LGBTQ agenda that's being hijacked by the Democratic Party. These are conversations that I've heard, seriously. And a lot of times Black men say, what I've heard also is that they will withhold their vote in protest, which obviously, again, is cutting your nose to spite your face. So I want to be out here as a mouthpiece to help bridge these gaps in communication and misinformation.
Well,
so that's just a couple.
I would, first of all, everything you said, it resonates.
Andrew said, as the resident Black man on this stage, I love it. No, go. No, that's true. It's true.
I would
That's
just
not
say
true.
we're not a monolith, and we shouldn't be fighting a battle against what one person's experience is versus your own. And that extends to you, which is you're not every Black man. Bronx Boricua is what you said. But I know this much. There's not, the gentlemen that you're coming into contact with aren't lying about what they feel their experience is with the Democratic Party. They're speaking it as they have experienced it. And the truth is that until Kamala Harris, I've never seen a president of the United States or candidate put out an agenda specifically for Black men. Never, ever. Within the Democratic Party, it's been a third rail, by and large, that the campaigns and candidates haven't gone to put Black men first and to name it. My philosophy with when you don't call something a thing, it ain't a thing. It's how I treat, one of my kids are at the pool. If everybody's watching, ain't nobody watching, which means I have to name it. I'm watching my 3 children as they play. So what I would say is that, yeah, we have problems within the Democratic Party. Yes, there are champions who are trying to change that. But Kamala Harris, as a candidate standalone right now for president, has prioritized us. And she's done it over the Black man president. And I say that with respect to Barack Obama, because when he was asked, what's the Black agenda? He said, my agenda for America is the Black agenda. And guess what? there isn't a black person I know that didn't benefit from health care when he changed it. So in some ways he's right, but also in some ways the third rail wouldn't allow him to call out. Look at what he said about Skip Gates coming in contact. He had to have a beer summit and still came up on the short end of that. Look at what happened with Donald Trump when he called him out as not an American. He's birtherism and all that shit. It broke my heart when the President of the United States released his public birth certificate. Broke my heart. It still does when I think about it, right? So, but the point is that we are making progress. We're not the perfect, but we are in the pursuit of the better, in pursuit of the perfect. Kamala Harris is not the person we ought to take our angst out on.
I agree.
She actually is in alignment with what it is that we believe ought to be the case. And we also shouldn't take our angst out against LGBTQ folks, black women, and the other folks that they attempt to pit us against, because that's all deficit mentality. Yeah. That's what white people have gifted us.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And one of the things I've noticed that the squeaky wheels get the grease. So they're the loudest. Those complaints resound louder than the solutions and the actual policies. And a lot of times we speak in echo chambers. We speak to those that understand, that communicate on a certain level, versus the brothers that feel like because they can't understand and there is that disconnect, they automatically feel abandoned.
But that's why we're talking with you, because the intention is that you may have access to rooms that they won't have, so that you can take information back that they otherwise won't get access to. And I'll just simply say there is not a single website you can go to and get all of the debunking. It all depends on what the attack is. It all depends on what the attack is, but I guarantee you,
the ACLU too. But sorry, Andrew, really quick.
ACLU does have
I wasn't talking about ACLU. There's a gentleman. I don't know where he went. His name is Evan. Evan, where you been? I've been telling you to come up here, Evan. I texted you and said, come up here, Evan. Evan, talk to this. What's your name, brother? Mario?
Yes, ma'am.
Evan is working on a Fulton County specific website that deals with misinformation and how to combat. Can you wave, Evan? He works for Congresswoman McBath as well. But the reason why this is important, what happened with Nikema is important. What happened with Andrew and what he's saying is important. Nikema and Andrew have had to take on the party themselves. Yeah. This isn't just let's be honest, because we can't. What we can't do is win them over with lies. What the honest truth is, Democratic Party got just as many racists in it as the Republican Party. They also got fascism and other. Now, the folks, at least on our side, I think, are at least amenable to changing. In part because no power does concede. It concedes nothing without a demand. They've been demanding. He demanded when he was running for governor. He demanded as mayor. He demanded as a commissioner. Those are the kinds of things that happen. If we don't get in the room and say, oh, no, this is going to change on my watch, it won't. Now, I submit to you that it's a hell of a lot easier to do it within the Democratic Party than to be having that fight with the Republican Party. We got to be like, well, things was much better under Jim Crow. Okay, y'all know who I'm talking about. I'm going to leave him alone. Byron.
I'm not going to hijack this anymore. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate your question. Thank you for that.
We gotta really get to this. Yes, Evan, talk to him and come really quick. Tell us about this website. Okay. And then, yes,
we'll go to your question. He gonna tell us about
just because it was about this information.
He'll tell us about this website.
Mario, listen to this real quick. Go ahead.
Hello everyone. Hello, wonderful panel. Apologies for being late. I kind of got lost in viewer mode. Love you guys. I am with Watch the Vote ATL. It is a collaboration between the Black Cross, founded by Gail Brooks, and the Georgia Institute of Technology for their specific school for people and technology. So what we have been doing is we have created a system where we use both machine learning and humans to track all the social media sites. So not just Facebook, not just Instagram. We also have accounts on Truth Social. We also have accounts on TikTok. And basically what we'll be doing is we'll be doing real-time fact-checking on any tweet, any video, or any type of source that's sharing misinformation, specifically for the Fulton County area. So we will be sending it directly to Fulton County's communications team. This project started because 85% of people this election feel like very scared of misinformation. And a plug for the podcast, I actually got inspired to be a part of the project and help start the project because of this podcast. I think on your third episode, Ms. Rye played a video about Biden being an AI deepfake, and I ended up calling my friends at Tech in Fulton County, and we were able to get it together. But yeah, so follow us at Watch the Vote ATL. If you want Fulton County specific information, we'll have it in real time. We're also looking for partners, so other people that when we have these reports about misinformation, we can get it shared out widely as a way, kind of taking a medical approach and a quarantine approach to it. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Evan.
you.
That is outstanding.
You've been so patient.
I know.
Thank you.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
My favorite podcast of 2024. I love you guys. As a certified financial social worker, I appreciate all the great work that you ladies do. I want to talk about piggyback the conversation before. As a social worker,
name and where you're from.
My name is Basilisa Moreno. I'm also a Bronx Boricua. I live in Delaware now. We talk about, I had the unfortunate having conversations of explaining severely mentally ill clients back in 2018 when Donald Trump cut food stamps. But why don't we talk about that? Why don't we use the language in 2020 when his disastrous COVID response and say he's got blood on his hands? He's killed 1 million people, one of them being my mom, one of them being 10 clients when I worked in New York City. Why don't we have these conversations? Why don't we have the conversations of people are actually experiencing like worse after COVID and the aftermath of COVID? That's one of my biggest problems with the Biden administration. As much as I was riding with Biden all the way until Election Day, and now that Harris, I'm still all the way. I still have the image in my head as a Bronx Boricua and him shooting fake-ass free throws on the island. Like, what the hell are you doing? We don't even have electricity. Having to call my family or try to reach my family, they don't even have electricity. And having like guys I went to high school with that are Hispanic and like voting for Trump, high school friends who are black brothers that I went to high school with voting for Trump, like, what are y'all doing? Fellow social workers, licensed social workers that called them out, I was like, you need to have your license revoked if you vote for that guy. What are y'all doing? Why don't we have these conversations? That's all I wanted to say. And thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And our condolences on the loss of your mother and our gratitude for the work that you continue to do. So thank you.
And keep having those conversations. It's more impactful from you.
Ladies, we got to do a part 2 of this. We did not have enough time, and yet we took up so much time. But thank you all so much. We're going to get to you, sister, just in one moment. Thank you all so much. We are going to bring up now, if we can, give a round of applause first to Nikema, Kim, Arian. Thank you for your work, queens. We got a few more queens that are joining us on the stage. We have Alicia Garza, who is the founder of Black Futures Lab. We have LaTosha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, and Errin Haines, a podcast host called The Amendment. And also, as they hug and kiss and not walk up here, Errin is also editor-at-large of the 19th. They're going to just say, reclaim my time. I'm going to take my time. Y'all was late, so now we late. Oh, they're going to walk over here and also disrupt the program. Let this be the last time y'all come over here and hug. Just stay till the end. Praise the Lord. Y'all going to keep going. Okay. All right. You know what, sister? Ask your question because they're not even sitting down. Yes, ma'am. Your name and where you're from.
Wait. Before Albert
Oh,
Sanders
Albert, where you going, Albert?
Albert Sanders is leaving. I just want to give a shout out to Albert Sanders real quick.
Hi, Albert Sanders. We shouted you out on the podcast as well, Albert Sanders. What are you doing to make sure that black people vote this election? All the things he said, except and running out of the podcast. Okay, well, still send us your notes. Bye, friends. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was trying to lower this. I'm so short. It was a little tall for me, so you'll fix it. So my name is LaToria Whitehead. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, but I've been here for a little over 20 years. And I'm not a FAMU Rattler, but I'm a CAU, Clark Atlanta University Panther alumni.
Two.
Oh, okay.
No, he is.
Not an honorary doctorate.
Oh, okay.
Okay, honor, that's true.
Okay, so my question was actually for the wonderful Congresswoman. I wanted to know, in her opinion, do you think we're talking enough about environmental injustices during this election cycle, which is connected to jobs and poverty and transportation and housing as well? And we do talk about climate change, climate justice, which is under the umbrella of environmental justice, I would argue. But I think that a lot of people think that the environment is something so pristine and out there, and it's not. It is connected to your child getting asthma and pollution in your environment, and Flint, case study. And so when you look at the environmental injustices, these disparities, these are the majority of people of color in low-income populations. So that's a part of our everyday lives. When you walk out your door, your grocery stores, what you don't have, and what we call the built environment. And I think a lot of people are not directly connected to that. And I'm just wondering what you thought about this election cycle, that are we talking enough about what we call environmental injustices?
Well,
and I'm so happy to
yeah.
see all of you.
We definitely talk about it. Welcome home. We definitely talk about it, but it's not under the headline environmental justice. But with that hurricane coverage, that is environmental injustice.
Yes, it
there
is.
are over 135 million people in this country who mostly look like us, who do not have access to clean drinking water.
Yes.
If there were 135 million white folks who didn't have access to clean drinking water, it would be breaking news to this day,
Yes.
every day until it's resolved.
Yes.
When we talk about like heavy rains and flooding, even outside of hurricanes, just weather, that is environmental injustice. So we may not be using those terms, which we definitely should be, but we definitely, in news, they definitely talk about it. They don't talk about issues that impact us disproportionately.
Right.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, and that is the piece.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have 3 lovely guests who have joined us. LaTosha, part of your work, you think about Black Voters Matter and how you all started Hurricane Katrina, and I think this goes hand in hand with what Tiff was just bringing up. Tell me your name again, sister. LaToria, what LaToria was just addressing with environmental justice. Talk to us about the important work that you all are doing every day, sis, what you're hearing on the ground. We got into a good conversation with this brother earlier as well, Mario.
I just want to say, hey, y'all. Welcome to the Atlanta, where the players play. So 2 things I wanted to say really related to what you just, the sister, what you just shared. One, well, let me do it backwards. So we don't hear a lot about environmental justice. Part of my organization is doing work. We have a campaign that we're doing called The Block is Hot, and that's our environmental justice, because we've got to connect environmental justice. For many people, it feels, or when you start talking about the environment, particularly the 6 major environmental organizations, they made it where it was like the protection of the trees, and we need trees, right? But people in their day-to-day lives, they're like, yeah, I understand the trees, but I'm suffering. And so part of our organization, we've done work and continue to do this work. We did this Block is Hot because down in South Georgia, people had electric bills that were $600, $700, $800, and they didn't make the connection of how the climate change is impacting them and impacting their pocketbooks. And so that's why we did this particular kind of education campaign around it. In connection to Hurricane Katrina, I'm from the Gulf Coast a lot of my life, and so part of before Black Voters Matter was started, Black Voters Matter was started. It wasn't necessarily an organization, but we did a lot of hurricane relief, because ultimately what is happening in the Gulf Coast is that the Gulf water, as the water is getting warmer and warmer, you're having more intensified storms. And so you're going to have a more frequency of storms, and they're going to be more intensified. And I know my brother Andrew can speak to that. But the second part that I wanted to raise to your point is, part of right now, if I were to ask people, kind of, let's look at the top 3 issues that are dominating the political landscape. What we're not really realizing is that many of those issues have already been predetermined by some folks, and we're hearing it over and over and over and over again. And one issue would be how they framed abortion. You would think that everybody in America get up every day thinking about, oh my God, what is about abortion, right? Now, that's a real valid issue, right? But it is framed because it really was an artificial issue in terms of frame to actually take down Roe v. Wade, but it was also to elicit a particular kind of emotional response from folks, right? So that people make a divided line on this particular one issue. And I'm saying that because oftentimes the issues that we're hearing are not issues that you're hearing from the ground, or that people are really making their main issue. I can talk to people on the ground right now for 5 minutes, and I can tell you who they listen to. I can almost tell you what podcast they listen to. I can tell you what network they listen to. I can tell you whether they read or not, right? And so part of it is because oftentimes what we're seeing as issues and what we're responding to because there are folks who are planting particular kind of ideas and issues and priorities of ideas and issues. The black male thing, right, around Black men are going to have this exodus. One, it's racist as hell. I'll tell you in terms of just the very foundation of that. And I'll tell you why I say that. But what's really interesting about that is that it's framed with us as if all of a sudden, because what white folks will do is they'll Columbus us. When they discover something, then all of a sudden it just created. It just was founded, right? So, oh my God, the black men are upset and they're disillusioned. Hell, black men been upset. Like, what you talking about? This ain't the first election cycle, right? This ain't the first time we've been disillusioned. Matter of fact, black folks in general don't necessarily excited about politics in America. That's not what we're excited about. We know all of them. Like, we doing the best we can to survive. We're clear, right? And I'm saying that because I think it's framed as if, it's like, Columbus discovered America, right? Even though the folks were already here. Like, oh, there's black disillusionment. Oh, it must be because of Kamala Harris. And then that becomes the narrative that is, and then it becomes an analysis about black men and this black woman at the top of the ticket. If there was real, genuine interest, you would really get to the bottom of an analysis of why black men are frustrated, right? And why it is valid for them to frustrate. But you don't want to talk about that. You want to talk about is Kamala. And then unfortunately, because of us don't read, some of us don't read, and some of us are really getting our information and our thoughts, not really having a critical analysis. We're taking what they're saying, and then we're responding. Now you got black folks running around saying that. Stop it, y'all. Stop it. Right? Unless you're literally talking to people and really doing this work and getting down to it, part of what we do at Black Voters Matter, part of our work is really around listening. When we first started for 7 months, Cliff and I, it was the only two, we literally went to 7 states and listened to folks. And so I'm saying that, and normally, I hate to say it, but this is the truth, normally the first answer people give us ain't never the real answer. It's really not. People will give you the quickest answer because we like to perceive as we're smart and we're thoughtful. And so when we hear people on TV, when we see folks on a podcast, when we read something, then if I just heard over and over and over and over again that black men don't want to support this system. So I've heard that over and over again. I'm not really sat down and had an analysis or even really sat with that for a minute. So when you come to me and put a microphone in my face, guess what I'm going to say? I'm going to repeat the same thing that I've seen on the internet, that I've heard, because I'm not really using a critical analysis or thought around that. I'm raising that because I think sometimes we're perpetuating something that really is not rooted in the real analysis, is rooted in what's the quickest and the easiest kind of pundit point that we've gotten, that some of this stuff has been placed some of this, y'all, all of these polls that are coming out from folks that we don't even know. You're doing a sampling poll of millions of folks with 200 people. Come on, right? And so a lot of that, there are polls, there are information that's literally being injected in our communities, and then we take it, we run with it, because what they're really doing is exploiting our pain, because the truth of the matter is we are disillusioned. The truth of the matter is black men are upset, but they being upset. Now y'all just paying attention, now all of a sudden they just got upset because you paying attention, right? And you're paying attention because you're forced to pay attention, because now you're faced to deal with gender and race. We've never had a circumstance in the presidential election that we had to deal with gender and race. We're dealing with gender and race just the best of the fact that there's a black woman at the top of the ticket. So my point is, we've got to have a little bit deeper analysis around when people are coming to us with that information, what's the source of it, and why you bringing it to me? Because now all of a sudden you care about black men being upset.
And that's the thing. I want to go here for a moment. And Alicia, I want to come to you because there's also another issue. The folks who dedicate their time and efforts and their own resources to ensure that black voices are heard and black people are listened to what LB was just saying, I think it's so important. You founded Black Futures Lab to do just that. There was did you guys hear about the Black Census? Raise your hand if you heard about the Black Census. So okay. So a lot of people in here, how many of y'all took the Black Census? Don't lie. I'm going to find out. I'm going to look up your names on the top. I'm just playing. I'm not going to do that. But I think that it's important to just pause here for a moment to acknowledge that when black people do things for black folks to ensure that black voices are heard and that black people's needs are met on a policy level, we don't damn participate. Okay. Hello, lights. Alicia, can you just weigh in on this? I think it's important.
That's how you finna bring me in?
Wait, hold on. Can we please turn all these mics on?
All right now.
Please?
No,
Hello.
you good. You good.
You can hear me okay?
You gotta like hold it like this.
Okay, I'm a.
There you go.
That's her fault. Sorry, y'all.
I'm gonna get real Eric B. and Rakim
Come on.
with it.
Yeah, come on.
Hi, y'all. Good afternoon. All right, we could talk about the Black Census. We can talk about the Black Futures Lab. But I just want to say thank you, LaTosha, because I think there is both a conversation about what we need to be doing with each other to stay connected, to stay focused, and to stay unified. There's also a conversation about what onslaught we deal with every single day. And that misinformation, disinformation stuff is a real thing, and we all getting caught up in it. So I want to appreciate you for raising that, and I want to appreciate you for raising it and saying not what you're going to do about it, but what can we do about it? I think, you know, when we talk about the environmental racism thing, which where I want to sit that, we got people out here saying there was no hurricane. No, we literally have people out here saying that that was made up too. So I want to sit us inside of like a powerful vision for how we get free by having each other's back and staying connected. And that's really what the Black Futures Lab is about. I started that organization to be a political home for Black people, to be a space where Black folks can come, not have to know everything, not have to be, you know, rocket scientists, but be able to get in a place where you can get informed, where you can fight together for the things that we want and the things that we need on our terms, not created by somebody else's agenda for us. And the Black Census was our first project. That was an opportunity for us to say, okay, the Democratic Party is not going to speak for Black folks. We can speak for ourselves. We reached 211,000 Black folks with that Black Census. That's the largest survey of Black people that's ever been done in this country's history. Let me say that again. That's ever been done in this country's history. But at 211,000 Black people, can you believe that we've never done that before? That we've never talked to 211,000 Black people from all 50 states, inside a jail and prison, outside a jail and prison, all kind of backgrounds that you can think of. Can you imagine that we haven't done that before? And from that survey, what we did was we didn't tell you what to say, how to say it, whatever. We just asked, what do you care about? How do you see these people? How are you relating to these people? What are the issues that you care about? And I can tell you, we said a year ago, the number one issue for Black folks is the economy. We said this a year ago. We said it 4 years ago, and people were like, what is the most important issue for Black people? Is it weed? We were like, no, it's the economy. Second most important issue for Black folks, gun violence. Third most important issue for Black folks, housing. Affordable, accessible, quality housing. Now, those aren't the sexy things that people like to talk about, but those are the things that we go to sleep thinking about every night, and those are the things that we wake up thinking about every day. And so then the question becomes, okay, well, now you got that information, what do you do with it? Well, we turned it into a policy agenda. We turned it into a Black agenda. We've done it twice now. Go to blacktothefuture.org and you can see the Black agenda that was designed from the Black Census. That is all stuff that we said we care about. And then what we did was we just dug in and said, okay, well, what laws can you make around this? Okay, laws about how we care for each other. How many of y'all are caring for parents and kids? Okay, that's a lot of us. Parents and kids. Okay. There's a lot of us out here, right, who are trying to figure out, how do I pay my mortgage? How do I even get a place where I can rent? There's a lot of us out here actually talking about abortion, but it's not our 10th issue. Because the way we're talking about it is, I gotta have money to raise a family. I gotta have money for healthcare. And then when we go and try to access healthcare, there's just one clinic with one doctor. When we go and try to access healthcare, right, we can't get it. Why? Well, the governor in this state don't want to accept federal dollars so that the rest of us can have healthcare. That's a real thing. So we started this project and this organization to fight for us on our terms. We don't always have to be a part of the conversation that people shape for us. We don't always have to be inside of that conversation. Do you like Kamala or do you not like Kamala? That's not the conversation that people are having. The conversation people are having is, why is gas so high? Why can't I get toilet paper at the supermarket? Why is there no supermarket in my neighborhood? So we got to stay in the right conversation. We got to stay in the right story, and the Black Futures Lab really helps to try to do that.
Speaking of stories, you go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Thank you. I'm not doing a good job of that today. I'm like, we over time, Errin. I want to come to you because Alicia brought up stories. Just so you all know, the three down there, and Tiff and I, Andrew can be honorary since he got his Rattler shirt on, and we do claim our brothers. We do not disconnect from our brothers, but we represent half of the machetes. For those of you listening to the podcast, you heard about us, gang all day. Errin, so I want to come to you. Speaking of stories, Errin is one of the funniest writers in history. She writes the best funny texts and tweets and all the things. I can't wait till she go to Hollywood and breaks away from the 19th. You should be a Hollywood writer. She really is that good.
Yes, please.
So if she's unfiltered today, y'all might get some of it in her answer.
Be unfiltered, Errin.
You're talking to Mike. Why are you whispering?
I'm like, but are you reading the journalism though? I mean, yes, I'm hilarious, but I mean, I got a newsletter, I got a podcast. I'm out here in these election
I said all
streets.
that when you were hugging. You didn't hear any of it, but I did say all of that in your intro, ma'am.
All right.
So I want to come to you though. Speaking of the stories,
I be writing stories when I'm not cracking jokes. It's true. Yes.
She writes the stories, all the stories. So can you tell me the headline that you envision writing the night of the election?
I can tell you the headline that
if she would have let me get to my question, you see?
The headline that is in my mind that I cannot write on election day, and this is regardless of who wins, is y'all ain't gonna believe this shit. Either way it goes, like that could be a headline that someone could use. I don't know if it's gonna show up somewhere. If it does, just know you heard it here first. No, but I mean,
That's actually a real thing.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. 10 days
is
out,
true.
so that's where I'm at. But no, I mean, look, I think I am reminded listening to both Alicia and LaTosha. We have to listen to voters in this moment. I love elections. I love covering elections. I love, covering candidates. But hearing from voters about the things that they care about what their daily lives are like and how that is impacting how they may or may not participate, right, at the ballot box. Like, that matters, and that is not what we are seeing in too much of our journalism, which is literally the reason that the 19th exists, right? We started our newsroom 4 years ago, a week before the Iowa caucuses. This is now our second presidential election. And listening to voters about the things that they care about, yes, will tell you that the economy is the top issue for people that we are centering: women, people of color, LGBTQ plus people, the disabled community, the caregiving community. Listening to those people about the things that are affecting their daily lives. And also, what do you mean when you say the economy is your number one issue? Because that looks different for different people. We have an environment and gender reporter. Why? Because we know that gender people are disproportionately impacted by gender as it comes to the environment. Everybody's environment is not created equal, right? And your environment sucks in a lot of cases, depending on where you live. We're talking about hurricanes. Hell, Flint, Michigan is still not solved, right? That is, and centering to LaTosha's point, not just nature or buildings, which is what the majority of white folks who are PS, the majority of the people who cover the environment in journalism, that's what they care about. People of color care about the people that are being impacted by climate change. And so that's what we mean when we talk about we can't talk about environmental justice for a building, right? We need to talk about what that means in terms of people. The reproductive rights issue that Alicia mentioned, right? Like, that is, we are talking about reproductive rights as an economic issue. That is what we are hearing from people. We are talking about reproductive abortion. What does it mean when a clinic closes for people in the LGBTQ community who are getting gender-affirming care? They can't get that care because that clinic is gone now. What does it mean when you have abortion ban, people are flooding into other states flooding into the ER. Now our people who may or may not have insurance, who need to show up at the ER, can't get in because they can't be seen because this abortion ban is sending people in droves to states where it's still safe to get care. You don't know that kind of stuff. You would know a lot of that stuff watching cable news right now, reading a lot of the stories in some legacy traditional mainstream outlets, because those people are not spending time with people on the ground. They're not hearing from people on the ground. And so that matters, and that is where the 19th has remained focused in this election. And that is, I mean, like, we just have to continue to talk about the issues. And that is beyond Election Day, by the way, right? As people are governing, whoever we elect on November 5th, like paying attention to how they govern, making sure that they govern in the interest of the emerging small d Democratic majority of this country matters. And so those are the kinds of stories that we are committed to tell. We know that race and gender are not just a storyline of our politics and democracy, they are the storyline. And so that is what we are committed to. I'm sorry that wasn't funnier. I'll be funnier on the next question.
You started off funny. So you guys know we're over time. So we're really quickly. I'm gonna come to Miss Lawrence. My good friend Miss Lawrence is gonna ask a question or make a statement. But we have Quentin James, who is here from the Collective PAC. So what are you telling me, Lolo? Oh, John Taylor is here as well. John Taylor is joining us, right? Is that what's happening? Okay. Ladies, I love you. We need these seats. I love you so much.
We're out of here. Okay.
God bless you and your family. When one of y'all can stay, we two of them gotta sit down now.
Well, all right.
I'm sorry. Like, well, all right. Andrew's like, she need help.
I
Help me,
don't.
brother. Help me, brother.
Stay. Y'all can sit at the knee of the stage. I'll move to the knee.
He's saying don't leave, but you just got to get off the stage, please. We love y'all. We need these chairs for John Taylor III, who is the co-founder of Black Male Initiative. Y'all, we have to be done in 6 minutes. What are you telling me? But yes. And Quentin, nobody is obedient. You can stay up here. Alicia says she's gonna stay right here. Okay.
That's it.
I love you, sis. That is just fine. You are always welcome. They won. Hi, John and Quentin. Hello. Okay, so you're closing us out. What y'all got? Say something to it. You have
I'll be real quick. My name is Quentin James. I'm the co-founder and president of the Collective PAC, also the Vote to Live Action Fund and Vote to Live Foundation. I got a resource for you all. A lot of people are talking about who to vote for, why to vote, and all that, and that's really important. I have a resource for you all. Please go to votetolive.org. We're providing free ride share vouchers for folks to go and vote early. $30 round trip, Uber. Go vote early between now and Election Day. That's what I'm here to say. All right, make your voice heard however you think you need to do, but show up and vote. Right now, we are running about 3 percentage points behind in Georgia in terms of our Black early voting targets.
So is this specific to Georgia or is it nationwide?
It's in about 10 states, but here in Georgia it's live now. Some states don't. Can you
say the 10 just because?
Yes. Again, votetolive.org. We are running this program in Florida, in Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada, and also Maryland. So any one of those states, go to votetolive.org. You can get a free voucher to go and vote early between now and November 5th.
John, you're coming at this from a unique bent. Of course, we just had LaTosha Brown on the stage, who also is involved in canvassing efforts, getting out and talking to our folks. Please talk to the audience and to us a little bit about some of the tremendous canvassing efforts that you're engaged in.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'm John Taylor, Black Male Initiative Fund founder, co-founder of Black Men Build, number of networks that we do around the country. In this moment, I have about 650 canvassers on the ground right now. They've been kicking since July 1st. We knocked over 114,000 doors for the primary, had over 22,000 conversations with voters in Georgia. As of today, we have done 905,000 attempts on doors, not just in Atlanta, Columbus, Macon, Milledgeville, Augusta, Albany. Majority of my crew, we call them YNs. They're young Black folks on the ground under the age of 30. My director and number 2 of the organization is 25 years old. He's not here right now because he's doing a voter or else voter die bus tour with Marvin Bing and them. So the reality is we've talked to about 195,000 black men, women, people of color across the state of Georgia. These are black men and women and people of color who are listed as infrequent, low propensity, low value voters. I don't mean the 195,000 people we talk to, that's them too. I mean the 650 canvassers that we employ. We are proving that black men are not apathetic, we're not lazy, we're not disengaged. Not only do we care, but we're critical thinkers. The other thing, thank you, Tasha, because I love LaTosha Brown like fat folks love cake. It is one thing to drive a wedge into our community and say black men and black women have a problem with each other. It is another thing to tell the lie that we don't show up for each other. LaTosha Brown been showing up for brothers since brothers been here. Black men care about black women. We support and respect the leadership of black women. We all came from a sister. We know what it means to be in right relationship with a sister. These brothers that are on doors knocking, having these conversations are not afraid of what it looks like to have a black woman as president. My grandmama been telling me what to do my whole life and she ain't never told me wrong. Black women have great knowledge and wisdom. That is not the same as black men not trusting systemically the problems that we face. In a country where it does not matter who's president, we die. It does not matter who elected, we go to jail. It does not matter who gets elected or appointed to Congress, we still get arrested. No matter where I go, handcuffs follow me, not because I'm a danger, a threat, a problem, aggressive, or any of those things. It's because the narrative is that somehow I'm a problem. So no matter how articulate, beautiful, powerful, intelligent we are, we find ourselves on the wrong side. And I'll end with this. Never in the history of running have you ever seen 6 people in a foot race, and the second person in the foot race is the one that you boo. Well, that's what y'all do to black men. Not y'all in this room, but as a society, structurally, black men have been the second largest progressive voting bloc since the inception of voting for us in this country, yet somehow we're always the reason and the problem we don't win. It's not us. So our message is there's nothing wrong with black men. As a matter of fact, there's everything right about us. And when we connect with sisters, there's everything great about us. And when we do the work that we do on the ground, not only will we break 1,000,000 doors, but we will turn out because it's 67% strong approval from our data. It's another 15% weak to moderate approval. If you do math, she broke 84, y'all. Less than 5% undecided, y'all. I'm not telling you about what some pollster said. That's 195,000 conversations you could take to the bank.
Thank you so much. Really quickly, we have former Congressman Cedric Richmond here. Cedric, can you just join us really quickly? We're having this really important black men moment. John, that was divine, what you just shared. I just want to acknowledge that as well. Thank you so much for your work. Congressman Cedric Richmond, former congressman, also a White House senior advisor. Be careful, please don't slide off that stage. That scared me. He is a co-chair of Kamala Harris's campaign, and I just wanted you to give us some closing words before we wrap up.
First of all, let me thank you all for what you do. Good to see you, Andrew.
And Tiffany.
And Tiffany, but I was going to say something.
Point. Okay.
I was going to say something specific about Andrew because we were talking about brothers and knocking doors. I went down to campaign for Andrew because I believe in him and his leadership and what he has done. So thank you for everything. And Tiffany and Angela, y'all are my bantering partners. We argue like sister and brother because we love each other like sister and brother. Let me just thank you all for what you're doing and thank you for having me. Look, this is going to be a close race. We always said it was going to be close. But the struggle and the fight for us, it's what we've always done. I will tell you, don't get too excited or interested in polling because the first part of a poll is you have to predict who's going to show up. And they never predict we're going to show up. But when you see people in this room like this, you know we're going to show up. And I have, since I've been running for office since 1999, I have one way of telling when we're going to have turnout, high turnout. I get older black men and black women come up to me and whisper in my ear, Cedric, what are we going to do about turnout? When they're doing that, it means they're also calling their daughters and their grandkids and they're saying, go out and vote. And you will see that excitement. But what we've seen in this race is just the climax of foolishness. We keep holding Kamala Harris to some standard of she needs to be, at genius level, and she's running against a kid stuck in his terrible threes that just keeps making stuff up. I mean, it is, when I say climax of foolishness, it's crazy. This dude's on TV talking about, I'm not going to tax overtime pay. But in Project 2025, he said, I'm going to get rid of overtime. So you're actually right. You're not going to tax overtime pay because you're going to get rid of it. He said, I have concepts of a plan. And all of a sudden, no matter what Kamala Harris does, they're just going to keep moving the goalposts. But the truth of the matter is we're not trying to please the political pundits. What we're trying to do is answer the Janet Jackson question of what have you done for me lately? And the answer to that is we've increased black wealth by 60%, 240,000 new homeowners. We've created a bunch of jobs, not black jobs, but we created 16 million jobs. And we've closed the racial wealth gap. Now, we still have a long, long way to go. And then the other question is, what's in it for me? Why bother? And so when we talk about black males, when we talk about black women, we owe them answering the question, why bother and what's in it for me? There's nothing wrong with challenging your elected officials and saying, what's in it for me? What's in it for my community? What's in it for my family? And so that's what you heard from black men. And rightfully so, they should ask. And rightfully so, we produced an agenda to answer their question because they deserve the respect of knowing. And so in closing, that's why I think it's going to be a close race, but I think we're going to win. And in fact, I would not be surprised if we won all of the battleground states. So, I'm bullish on Georgia, and that's because I'm a Morehouse man. I'm bullish on North Carolina, especially if you look at the buffoon running for governor there. I'm bullish on Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, but guess what? We're going to go to Arizona and Nevada, and we're going to win there too. So I'm not telling you all to do like my family's doing and start texting about inauguration tickets and stuff, because you never go buy the drapes and cut the grass before the closing. So we have to close this election. And my grandmother would always say, the Lord will order your steps, but you got to move your feet. And so come election day, we're going to have to move our feet. And for those who didn't vote early, we're going to have to show up and show out on election day. And look, vote early. Back in the day in Louisiana, we would say vote early and vote often. And I don't want anybody to accuse me of saying that. I'm just telling you what the politicians used to say. But the fact that you're here should give you some comfort that we know the stakes of this election. And I just want to thank this group for all of the work they do, not just during election time, because this is the easy time, but to bring real conversations, real guests, and facts and passion in and out straight to the black community with no filter is important. And so thank you all for what you're doing. Look, offering yourself for public service is never easy. And to do that, we do it for kids, families, and people we'll never, ever know. But it's not about politics. It's not about profits. It's not even about party. It's about purpose. And at some point, somebody is going to be appreciative that the Lord allowed me to walk this earth. And that's how Kamala Harris feels. She wakes up every day fighting. And for anybody, who really questions her, she is HBCU through and through. Whoa, slow down. I mean, that's why I didn't name the HBCU.
She is HBCU through and through, and she can fight with the best of them. So like my grandpa used to say, if you see her fighting a bear, help the bear, because she's going to be all right. So let's go out and help her. Let's win this election.
Please don't help this
because
damn
this
bear,
is
though.
important.
Please, the bear, leave that bear alone.
I didn't say help an orange bear. I just said help
Don't
the
help
bear.
no bears, please.
A beautiful place to end, y'all. I know it's felt like rapid fire, but can we give it up for this closing panel, this conversation? Oh. And we also want to thank our listeners who are on the other side of these cameras. They say polls are predictive, but the only one that matters, right, is election day. Those that are counted. I remember running 5th out of 5th the weekend before the primary election in Florida and being 1 out of 5 on election night at its close. So we get to determine who wins, who becomes the next president, and we'll fight whatever fight is necessary after that. Y'all, there's only one thing left to do is say.
Wait 1 second. We have another.
Wait. Oh, we have a special guest.
I thought you said we had another guest.
We don't have no.
Oh, I think we do.
No, we
So maybe you guys don't know, but tomorrow is Angela Rye's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Uh-oh.
And some of our Machete sisters could not be here today, but they could not let the day go by without wishing her a happy birthday. So let's roll that tape.
Wishing you the most fabulous, fun, fierce, and phenomenal birthday ever. Because you deserve it. Because you are such a dear sister friend, so genuine, so there, not just for your people, but for the people. So I just respect and love and adore you so much. You know, sister, I hope that you're having the very best day. We love you so much. I'm sorry I can't be there in person to celebrate your birthday. But Angela, you are chief of staff to the lights, just like Tiffany says all the time. But you are also chief of staff to so many of our hearts. You make us feel loved and mothered, cared for, and always thought about. We love you, we love you, we love you. Happy birthday. I love you so much, sister. I think that you deserve to be celebrated for your excellence every single day of the year. But because today is your special born day, I am celebrating you. I am saying I'm so bummed I cannot be there. But I love you big. I love you deep. I love you hard. Like we go together. So. 2:45, so that makes you around 5. You look great. So people know that, hey, you do what you do because we really need you. This is your year, so let's toast this year. Woo! What's going on, Eggplant Pod family? It is your cousin, Dr. David J. John, and Teresa Rye. I'm so very thankful for the gift of you. I pray that this next turnaround, the sun brings you an abundance of everything, love, joy, everything that you've been dreaming of, and then some, because you deserve that and more. I love you. I look forward to celebrating with you soon.
No, we don't do that. Happy birthday
to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday
to you. A little early. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday.
Okay. We got 11 days till election. In about 20 minutes till somebody else got to be in this room. God bless y'all and your family. You ain't got to go home.
Happy
but you got to get up out of here.
And we say to you all, welcome home, y'all. Thank you so much for
11
being
days.
here.
Go vote, go vote, go vote. Thank you, y'all. I love you deep. Thank you. My birthday's tomorrow, so I'll do this all again tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Gillum and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth, even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Welcome home, y'all.
What's
Welcome
up,
home.
sis?